Hello everyone and welcome. Make a cup of your favorite drink and get comfortable because this is a wonderful time for new stories from Yellowcat. Send your own favorite stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. Let's get started. Which example of quick karma do you think is the best? Part 2. When I was working in fast food, there was this one woman at the front counter, the typical I want to speak to your manager type of person, right down to the insulting voice, the haircut, and the complete and utter lack of human decency, among other things. On this particular day, she was treating everyone more like garbage than she normally would. She insulted us, called us names, told us to hurry up when we were already going as fast as we could and were busy and understaffed, complained loudly that we were slow and all that jazz. She was doing all of these things. This diva, after waiting for less than 5 minutes, finally receives her order, which consists of a milkshake, one of our messier burgers, and an abundance of fries. She insisted, her words not mine, that she speak to our manager who had been observing the entire situation but was unable to take any action because he was stuck in the drive-thru line. Following that, the typical thing that took place was that she stated that our service was terrible, blah blah blah. But then, as she turns around to take a seat, she turns too quickly and the milkshake slips on the tray. She makes an effort to grab it, but she ends up tripping over her own feet in the process. When she stood up, she was covered from head to toe in sauce, grease, fries, and salt. All of it stuck to the milkshake that had basically exploded all over her upon impact. We were unable to contain our laughter, just barely, even the manager. She walked out in enraged silence, didn't even ask for a refund. Never saw her again. I worked out on the floor of a DSW, discount shoe warehouse, in the mall in my college town during my first semester. Helping people find shoes and making sure the display were neat were the main parts of my job, not fun work. For some reason, my boss asked me to do something one day. We were in the back of the store, close to some items that were on sale. As we talk, a mother and her 12 to 13-year-old son walk in from the mall. He's holding a red slushie from Auntie Anne's, which is right outside our door. Having his skateboard in the other arm says it all. I heard him say bad things about the store when he walked by, like, place looks depressing. Yeah, that's right, but he was so proud of it. Anyway, I thought to myself, this little jerk, as he said it. What came next was so smooth that it makes me laugh to think about it now. He tripped over his own feet as soon as he was done thinking. He dropped his skateboard right away and it landed in front of him. He then falls off the skateboard, which rolls towards the column in front of him and his mom. When he hits the pillar, slushy goes everywhere. My boss and I saw this happen and had to hide behind a shoe rack to laugh a little. She got her composure back quickly and asked me to grab the cleaning supplies as she went over to check on the kid and his mom. It was well worth it. My phone is really bad at my job as a host at a restaurant. Though you can kinda hear what people are saying, you have no way of telling who they are. One slow night, I get a call from someone who sounds like a whiny frat boy who's upset that he needs a table right now for his 10-person party. I play it cool and tell him that he needs to bring his whole group here in order to be seated. I also tell him that I can't add him to the wait list over the phone because that's against company policy. He sneered and said, "Effing whatever, your restaurant sucks anyway," at the end of the call before hanging up. It really made me mad, but I was professional the whole time, even though I cut him off when he started yelling. After 30 seconds, my boss tells me that it was him. While the servers cheered him on, he effed me on speakerphone in the alley. I told him he was a jerk. 30 seconds after that, he's dropping food off at a table and drops a burger on some lady's head. The burger just slid right off the plate and plopped onto her hairdo. They started yelling and he had to comp their whole meal and deal with the angry customers. So I had to deal with fake angry customers because he thought it was funny, then he got to deal with real angry customers. The boss I had hated me so much, but let's start at the beginning of this story. I worked part-time at a deli, and my shifts were at the end of the day. We didn't get along at all before he was promoted. His tone was condescending, and he was always looking for something I did wrong to point out, no matter how unimportant or pointless it is. At first, I wouldn't care about it. This was a really stupid mistake that I made because it got worse over time. Just to show him, I had to take pictures of everything I did so he couldn't pick at it or blame me for anything. I finally had enough and couldn't ignore it any longer. When he would pick at little things or be very condescending to me, I would show him how little he knew about his job in a passive-aggressive way to put him in his place. It was funny to see him go from being a condescending know-it-all to awkwardly defending himself or acting like he knew something he clearly didn't. It made him mad. It got so tense that it was almost hostile as we played this game for 2 months. He was eventually given the job of supervisor. At the time, I had 2 jobs and wasn't interested in the supervisor job for a number of reasons. Let me explain and set the scene for a moment. The job I had wasn't great. A lot of people left. We had 4 different supervisors in 6 months, which shows how unstable the job was. The boss who was there before him quit on the same day she interviewed me. None of the other applicants wanted the job because it was stressful, didn't pay well, and you'd probably be fired soon if you didn't quit first out of frustration. It was as safe to work in that job as being a head coach. Whatever the case may be, as soon as I accepted the job, my boss started working right away to get me fired. He tried to write me up for made-up reasons, told other workers he wanted to fire me, picked at my work more, and even cut my hours. I was quietly putting together a case of harassment to bring to the attention of HR the whole time. It got really bad when he mysteriously disappeared from our department for 2 hours and no one knew where he was. The very next week, he tries to write me up for leaving work to get a drink of water. As you might expect, I was mad and took out all my anger on him that day. We went to the office of the general manager, and I asked my GM to explain why he wasn't caught disappearing for 2 hours, but I should be punished for getting a drink of water. GM doesn't have an explanation and sends me home to cool things over. I was mad. I didn't have to work for a few days because my boss cut my hours, so I'm mentally getting ready for a hostile work environment on my next day there. Everyone greets me with a smile and tells me they have good news for me. While I was on my little vacation, my favorite boss was fired. Apparently, he had a really bad illegal substances problem. This increasingly bad illegal substances problem led to him making poor decisions. The day after I left, he was caught attempting to forge my signature for a couple of write-ups I refused to sign. He then pulled a no-call, no-show the following day, and then, the day after that, he showed up 3 hours late under illegal substances. All of this happened in 3 days. After 3 days, he was fired right then and there. I never got anything that even came close to an apology, but I did get all of my hours back and a clean record. Describe what happened so you realize that the HOA in its current form should not exist, Part 2. Wow, decks, I'll tell ya. There is a small deck on the back porch that hasn't been taken care of and has chipped paint and some rotten wood. I move into an HOA. Not a big deal, I tell the HOA. Since it's my house, I'll fix it. First month, I get a notice telling me to do what I said I would do. Remember, it's October, and if it's not fixed, they'll fine me the cost of fixing it. I don't know where they get their prices, but for $900, I could build a whole new deck. I say that I'm gonna wait until summer and then get to it. They agree. It was 2016, and winter was mild. Then I get a message saying I should do it since the weather has been nice. What the heck? I have no idea how long this'll last. When summer comes, I replace a few boards on the railing and add screws to hold everything in place to replace the nails that have rusted out. The neighbor lady was very nice and told me I did a great job and it looks great. She might have even asked for help with hers. I get a notice that I was fined $350 for not giving the architect's review board the updated building plans for the deck. This is why I call the property MGMT company Heated Right. The heck is this? Who do I call? At the moment, no one was sitting on that board spot. I'm getting fined for not calling someone who doesn't exist, and this should only be for building something new, not fixing the thing I needed to fix. They say sorry and take away the fine. I'm not painting right now because I've always been told to wait a year before painting treated wood. I'm not sure if that's true, but that's what I've heard. So I have a clean, stripped deck that is safe to walk on by the end of August. In December, I get a fine for not painting my deck, plus interest and late fees because not giving the architect review board the plans. I am, of course, very angry. I call and argue once more. They say they're sorry and fix the problem. I don't know much about politics, but I want to know who's reporting these violations. This group of old farts comes around once a month to do it. They didn't seem to like me very much because my son was playing outside and making a lot of noise, and I didn't have my dog on a leash when he was in my backyard. This is my backyard, and all the kids from the neighborhood would come over and play. Now it's summer, and I get the paint that was on the deck before and paint the whole thing. People in the group walk by while I'm painting. "Hey, what are you doing?" asks the old man. That's not a good color to paint a deck these days, right? I'm not proud of what happened next, but I think I scolded a 66-year-old man because it was the same color before as were the 3 decks around me. But since it was new paint, I had to get one from the new palette that was sent out. That day made me sure I was going to sell the house. The following week, I put it on the market. There were other problems as well. The prices went up $145 in just 2 years, and they didn't fix anything on the house like the roof, but they said it was okay if I didn't get it done right away. This happened to our neighbors when I was a kid, and it's like the opposite of HOA because they actually didn't do S. These bushes were planted by our neighbors who live on our own block. Those varieties that have roots that are dispersed all over, and it would make its way into the sewer system of their neighbor, which would have an impact on their water supply. The man made an effort to discuss the matter with the people who live nearby. In an effort to demonstrate that these plants were having an impact on their water supply and sewer system, he even made an effort to provide them with information and documentation. As a result of the fact that the neighbor did not show up, the man went to the HOA, but they did not take any action because their rules did not include any instructions regarding what they could or could not plant. The individual and his family decided to take their neighbors to court and file a lawsuit against them instead. The family prevailed, and as a consequence, the neighbors lost their home. As a consequence, they moved out, and the house remained vacant for a period of 2 years while it was owned by the bank. There's no way I can figure out how HOAs are legal or how they can fine people. An agent I talked to in Florida said that their neighborhood used to have an HOA until a resident who was a lawyer sued and won, saying that HOAs were illegal. I don't know if it's something about Florida laws specifically he won with or what, but I just don't see how they have any authority over someone's private property. The best one I have is of me and my mom when I was a child. I grew up in a small town. Our house was on the edge of town in the mountains on an 1.5 acres of land. All of our neighbors had plots about the same size. Over time, many new homes were built, most of which cost $1 million or more. An HOA was created, and the people who already lived there were asked to join. My mom and most of the other people who weren't very rich said no. Well, when I was 12 or 13, we had to paint our house again. Our paint job was sky blue with white trim. It used to be earth brown. After 2 days, we got a letter from the HOA telling us that this paint color wasn't allowed and that we would be fined. They also said that they would pay for a company to come out and paint the house a different color that was okay. My mom lost it and gave them a stick there note. After a week, painters showed up while she was at work. My grandparents, who sometimes stayed with us, called her to let her know, but my mom would not have it. They were trespassing on her land, so she called the police and had them kick the painters off. Their grandparents had stopped them and wouldn't let them start painting. The problem will be solved once Mom gets a court order or some other legal stop from the court against the HOA. After about 2 months, she won the court case and said she could do what she wanted because she lived there before the HOA was formed and they couldn't make her join or follow their rules. When it was time to paint the house again, about 5 years later, she chose to paint it bright peach with dark purple trim. This is how I know she can hold a grudge. If you want to watch the part 1, click the link here. We're very, very happy to see you all in the comments again. Many, many thanks for your support.